All right, we're going to work on the next exercise here, which is to sum up the number of integers based upon user input. So if the user enters 3, then we're going to add all the numbers that lead up to 3. Okay, so uh, as you can probably figure, we'll probably use a loop to do this, right? And so the example they show in the output is 4. So we'll add together 0, 1, 2, 3, which is 4 numbers, and that totals 6. So that's our coding task here. I am going to do a save as on this program that I just wrote. And if you guys remember, it was on my Google Drive. And when I was saving it is when that crash happened, by the way. So I'm hoping that that's not why. No, it looks like it actually saved. Yes, I'll replace it. Okay, so if I crash again, you know that it's the saving in Spider, but apparently not. All right, new file. I'm going to call this one, let's call it sum of nums. Seems like a good name. Zoom in just a tad here. And we'll start with a prompt. Right. And okay, so last time I had a print statement for some reason, and then I did a prompt. It's could really combine those into one. So we are taking that input though and converting it into an integer. That's going to be a necessary step. I am going to set up a variable called I to help run my loop. I'm going to preset that to 0. And then I'm going to have another variable called final sum, also preset to 0. I'm going to go into a while loop for this. I could do it with a for loop. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say while I does not equal the number. So in other words, I'm going to start at 0 because I is preset to 0, and then I'm going to increment it each time going through. But as long as it doesn't reach that number that we typed in, then we'll run this code. So we're just going to take whatever that number is, and we're going to add it to the final sum, right? So I can plus equals I, right? So that's 0, 1, 2, 3, and it adds it to the sum. And then we'll also increment I. This is really an easy one. I don't know if you guys are feeling it. Some of these were more challenging than others. That's it. All right, now we just do output and we're done. So thank goodness this one's a quick one, right? I'm going to do an F string on this one. So I'll put in the letter F, and I'll say the sum is, and then we'll use string interpolation and say final sum. Like so. We could, in the process of doing this, by the way, we could output each number as it goes through. I think that was part of the example too. If you feel so ambitious, go for it. But let's just try the sample value of 4. Yeah, and I'm wondering if my Python console here is crashing, and that's what's going on with my system. I'm trying to figure out why this is not running. The code is certainly correct. Is anybody getting theirs to run correctly? This is a pretty simple one. So I'm wondering right now if my Python, if Spider's messed up. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually shut this down here, and I'm going to bring up Visual Studio Code and try to run it in there. And I'm wondering if like I was getting a conflict between the two IDEs because they were both running at the same time. I don't think that should really be an issue generally. since I'm attached to the same folder here, I can just pull it up directly. You guys see that? All right, let's go ahead. Yeah, I'm just checking my code, but I know there's no errors. It's so simple. All right, let's see it run over here then. Got the same problem here. What's going on with my code? There has to be an error that's happening. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually kill my console, and I'm going to, for testing purposes, and I'm just kind of giving you guys a heads up here, is I'm going to print out the letter I in my loop as I'm running, and heck, I'll print the sum too. In fact, I could do them both on the same line. So I could do an F string and print I, and the final sum. And I'm wondering if I misnamed something, or do I have an infinite loop happening? Is that what's going
I
on?
think an infinite loop might be the
Yeah.
case.
So you guys are feeling me?
Yeah.
All right, Steven, is that what you were going to say?
No, I was gonna say I got mine to work doing the same exact thing you did, but I was wondering, does that like the hashtag on line 9, does that only comment something out if it's at the beginning, or is it like anything after the hashtag? So is that messing with something there?
Yeah, but see, that's inside of a
Okay.
string statement, right? Yeah. So like what you're saying is like if I would have had a hash symbol here, I mean that becomes unexecutable code. I think John's onto something. All right, let me run this as is. And here's my console. And I don't know if you can tell this, but it's just going and going and going and going and going and going and going. All right. So it seems that it's breaking. And you know what? I might have to like force the terminal to stop here.
So I think num is never changing. So, right? From the
Yeah.
initial value, yeah, I think it needs to be changing to
Yeah. Or
what?
do I need to tweak this statement to do something with it?
Y-
Yeah.
How many
Mark,
numbers
You
you
you're right
have?
have
on it. You're on it. So
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 you
yeah.
need to start from one or something and then all the way to the number that they provide, the user provided.
Okay. Is this logic even right?
think it's line 16. You have I plus I. Shouldn't it be I plus 1?
Ah. Yeah, because I starts with what? As what?
0. So it'd be
Yeah.
Yeah,
like 0 plus 0 and never incrementing.
that's
Yeah. So
it.
this
Yeah,
is
that's it.
I okay, this is really kind of an interesting little quirk, and I'm just gonna kind of point this out. Notice how the letter I sort of looks like the number one, also looks like the letter L.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, that's totally what's happening. This should be a one. Is this okay though? Yeah, that
I
one's
think,
okay.
yeah,
This is
it
the
needs to be
problem.
printed at the end.
Yeah. Very, very good catch there, Stephen. All right. So, all right. All right. Now I'm still stuck in this console here and I want to just kill this console. I always forget how to do it in this program. Oh, how do we kill the console in here? There we go. All right. I knew there was a way. Every program is a little bit different. All right. So we're going to come down here. We're going to run it now. I apologize for, and there we go. Now it's working correctly. But lot to learn from that seemingly simple little program is you gotta dot your I's and cross your T's and make sure your I's aren't supposed to be ones, right? Um, but notice like when I did get it to work and the troubleshooting steps that we took to solve it, right? So like one of the troubleshooting steps was looking at the structure of your loop. John identified, but we're never changing num. That was the first thought, right? And then we're like, oh yeah, but we're not trying to change it. This is our limit basically for our loop. What we weren't changing was the I, right? That was kind of a catch there. All right, let's move on to the next one because we're tight on time here. So the next one is the adventure game. All right, so with the adventure game, I'm going to do this real, frankly, in a way that's going to be kind of quick like, I guess is a way to say it, because there's kind of a lot of text here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a whole lot of copy pasting of what I already have rather than start from scratch, just so you guys are aware of that. This is highly subjective. Like how you build this is really kind of up to you. But for a lot of us that started and got really enthralled with computing at a really young age when computers are a lot more primitive, it was text-based games like this that drew us in. Like, and I'm trying to think of what was the Oregon Trail was another one, right? It's like you have, this much food left. What do you do? That kind of thing. And it was all text. But yet we were completely enthralled. So it's like the game was really more in the imagination. But to give you an example of what it should look like. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set up the game off of this type of approach. So first I'm going to call it adventure is what I'm going to call mine. Adventure.py, that's what we called it last time. And I'm going to start kind of in a weird fashion. So I'm going to make a lot of space at the top, but at the very bottom, I'm going to create I could call this main, I guess. Last time I created it, I called it start. There's no rule in Python that you have to like run your program off of a main method. So I'm just kind of showing you can kind of break that rule, but I am going to call it to start. So in other words, this starts the game. Right. So this will basically run the whole program, right? And I do want to basically start by prompting the user. So I'm going to say something like this, right? You're standing in a dark room. Notice this is all indented just 2 spaces for some reason. So I must have done that as an example on purpose. You're standing in a dark room. There's a door to your left and the right. Which one do you take, L or R, right? That's what we need to type in. So now we have to get the input. We normally, right, when we're getting stuff from the keyboard, we might want to convert it to one case or the other because it's less checking and if statements based upon the input, right? So I'm going to take that input and convert it to lowercase. Then I'm going to ask a series of questions, right? So here's an example, right? If L is an answer, so in other words, we're gonna take that and drop it inside here. So if the letter L is in there, then we'll take them to the bear room. Now notice the bear room is a function that I haven't created yet, right? Or I can take them, they could have went right. And I want to check my indenting here. Be there, right? We either take them to the bear room or we take them to the monster room. Neither one sounds very promising, right? Because we don't know what the monster is, honestly. And then from there, is there another choice? Okay, this is highly subjective. So what's the other choice? They didn't type an L or an R, basically. So game over, that's also a function. And notice that this one I'm sending in a thing. So I have 3 functions to create here. So I'm going to start building each one of those. All right. so the way that I did this, and I realize that we're really tight on time here, so I'm going to do this in a very, very quick fashion. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the bare room function. I'm going to put that up here. So this is my bare room function. And I'll close the console so you can see it better. All right. All right. So they press the key. They're in the bear room. So I say to them, "There's a bear in here. Behind the bear is another door. The bear is eating tasty honey. What would you like to do? One or two. Take the honey. Taunt the bear." Right. Probably taunt the bear is the smart move, right? Maybe, right? All right. So we prompt them again. And then, well, if the bear kills you, we need a game over function. If you chose two, which is to taunt the bear, then you go to the diamond room. That sounds promising. Or otherwise you just die because you don't know how to type a number, basically. All right. So then we're stuck building more functions. All right, let's write game over. That seems like a pretty easy one. All right, so here's what I did for game over. And notice I'm adding these to the top. I wouldn't normally do it like this, but time is short. All right, we'll print the reason. The reason will be delivered here, right? So what's the reason? Right, you didn't know how to type a number, right? Or the bear killed you, right? So that would be the reason. Bear killed you, in other words. All right. And I'm not sure why it was done with the concatenation. That's not necessary. There's also a play again because, you know, hey, I just got killed. I want to try this again. This is so fun, right? So here's my play again function, right? Do you want to play again? Yes or no? If yes, we go back to the start method. Otherwise, you know, they didn't type a yes, so they're out. They're game over again. I'm done is the reason this time. All right. All right. So we have the bear room, but then we noticed that if you can get past the bear, you can go to the diamond room. So I need to create a diamond room function. And part of this is really to kind of reinforce the thought here that you're using functions to drive a program. We're doing very simple if statements with simple input. And this is really more of a creativity thing more than anything else. You know, this isn't really hard to code. It's just a matter of the time put in. So I'm going to put in the diamond room, and yeah, I'm putting it at the top again, right? So now you get to a room filled with diamonds, and there's a door too. What would you like to do? Take some diamonds and go through the door, or just go through the door? Right? All right. Well, if they choose one, they were cursed diamonds. The moment you touched it, the building collapsed, and yada yada yada. You died, basically. I know you gotta have some fun with this, you know, and you can tell I put too much time into it. But if they chose two, nice, you're an honest man. Congrats, you win the game, and then you can play again, or you chose not to. Is there any option here that I didn't fulfill? There, I think there was one, right? We didn't do the monster room, right? Because that was just going left. Now we got to go right to the monster room. So now we're gonna do the monster room function. Just copy that code over. And once again, I'm just going to throw that way up at the top. And I messed up my comments here, but hey, that's easily fixable. So you entered a room with a monster. The monster is sleeping. Behind the monster is another door. What would you like to do? Go through the door silently, kill the monster, and show your courage, right? So if you do the one, then you go to the diamond room. So you got to go through that room. If you answered two, the monster was hungry. It ate you, basically. Too bad. You're dead. Move on. Now, one thing I will say, right? So this is kind of goofy, and we can run this if you want. I don't think it's really necessary. I would probably actually put that start method up at the very top, right? Or if you wanted to call it main, it would work well way up there too. I'm just going to write really quick just to show you guys. I don't know if it's really, really critical. See if I remember all the maneuvers. So left. What do I want to do? Take the honey, taunt the bear. I think we want to taunt the bear. Take some diamonds, go through the, or just go through the door was the right answer. right? Do you want to play again? Yes. This time we'll go right. To kill the monster and show your courage. Oops, I'm dead. Do you want to play again? I'm going to say no. Oh, it still asked me to play again. It looks like I have a little problem here with mine. Right. You want to play again? I guess I can only play again. So what do I need to fix to play again? I need to fix my code for that. So these are the kind of problems that you run into. And yeah, I'm just going to kill the terminal right here. But you could have a lot of fun with this, right? And you know what? Think about all those old school games now, like Oregon Trail is like the one a lot of you might know. And if you don't know that, consider yourself fortunate. But there was a day and an age that these are what our video games look like, and it was like a game of imagination, you know, and people would actually like map the stuff out and all that kind of stuff and figure out their way through. All right, folks. All right, so I think my problem here was in play again. Right, but then you get to game over. Here's my game over down here somewhere, right? Of course it plays again. Yeah. So what we need to do is really put in, so the fix, and I'm just going to put a little note here. Fix, take the no answer and allow people to exit, right? So next time. I'm not going to fix it. If we had time, I would fix it, but we don't. So, all right. And let's try to hit that. I think we have one more exercise here, which is songs. This one's kind of interesting. We have a mere few minutes left. So once again, I'm going to have to do this kind of in hurry up mode. And there's the movie one. Okay, so there's the movie one too. All right, I'll tell you guys what. I'll code the songs one quick, and I'll keep rolling for a little bit over the class. I know most of you guys are in the next class. It'll be okay. Are you guys all right with that? Because we did lose a few minutes because of the crash. So, and then AI people that are dropping in, we'll just have to deal with the coding. All right. So this one says, write a program that asks the user for their 5 favorite songs and the artist, the songs and artist each in a list and print it out. Create a main method and print songs function, and you need to pass the list from the main function to print songs function to get it to work. All right. So I would start with this as well. I guess would create a file first. So I'm just going to call this song.py. There it is. I don't need to import anything, but I do need to have 2 lists. One's going to be a song list. So empty square brackets for that. And then we're going to have an artist list. Same deal, empty list. We're going to have a main method. So I'm going to define main. So this is what's going to drive the whole program. Down at the bottom here, we're going to call main so it runs. And then we're also told to create another function called print songs with parentheses. And then I'm using that little pass trick. So I don't have code for it yet, but it's there. You know, so it doesn't throw errors. All right. So in the main method here, main program body, we're going to start with a print statement. Enter your 5 favorite songs and the artist. So it's kind of like instructions. We'll put this in a loop. It would seem to make sense to do that. So I'm going to say for I in range. And how are we supposed to do? 5, right? All right, so is that the right number to put there? Yeah, and you know what? We can test this, by the way. So we'll see if it asks us for 6 or 4, or we're not sure, right? So we'll try it out. And in fact, I might recommend that you use a lower number here for testing, like 2 or something like that. In fact, why don't we do that? Let's just switch it to 2, and then we can always bump it up to 5 or 6 or whatever when we're ready. And what we're going to do here is now we're just going to prompt for inputs. So we're going to prompt for the song. I apologize, I didn't mean to hit the arrow tool there. I'm just going to retype that. Why is it highlighting red? Even I'm not catching it. Not indented is the answer. I'm not indented here. Yeah, not at all, right? So I'm gonna tab those in. There we go. Otherwise, they're not in the loop, right? I didn't have anything in my loop. That's why it was highlighting. All right. Then we're gonna take each one of those and append it to each list. So we're gonna append the song to the song list and the artist to the artist list. And it'll just repeat. For now, it's going to go up to the range of 2. And then when we're done with that task, we're going to come back out 1 indent level, and we are going to, well, print out the songs. Were we told to create a function for that? Yeah, we need to have a print songs function. So I'm going to first call that. And then I'm going to need to figure out what's going to go in that function to make that work, right? Now, keep in mind, when we would want to print this, so this is how the approach we would generally kind of use to do the printing. We would want this kind of an output somehow in that function. So I'm just using that there as a reference, basically. So the way I would do this is I would start with a count. I want to know how many songs are in the list. That would be helpful, right? This is if I do it with a while loop. Could I do it with a for loop instead? There's some advantages, and I want you to think about this. When you use a while loop, I have to figure out what my parameters are so I can set my while loop correctly. If I use a for loop, the for loop will automatically traverse the data structure. It's probably a better choice. It's kind of an interesting thought. I'll proceed with the while loop because that's what I had left last time. So I'll start with a counter here, right, for index values, and I'm going to say while count is greater than or equal to 0. We'll do our print statement. So that's a print statement I was trying to put together before. And then we'll do a couple of other little things. So we'll add or subtract 1 from the count. So why are we subtracting from the count? Yeah. All right. So if I know how long my list is, what number is this going to bring back? I want you to look at the logic that's set up here. This is like kind of a backwards logic. And this is why I would use a for loop typically for this, but this is how we coded it last year for some reason. All right. And then I is being incremented. I could go I plus equals 1. That's probably a better approach. In fact, I'm going to switch it to that. And I'm not sure where this code originally came from. I think this might be Christopher's. I'll blame Christopher for it. So if Christopher watches this video, he'll get a chuckle out of it. All right. This will actually work. Let's just try it with what we have so far. Oh, yeah, I'm still stuck in this game here. So let's break out of the game. So if you're, by the way, if you're stuck in a console and your program doesn't stop running, hold down Control-C to break the program. All right, so let's go ahead and run this one. Enter your 5 favorite songs and artists. This is only going to prompt us twice if I remember right. So, oh gosh, I'll just revert to the Beatles. Oh, these are just the first ones that popped in my head, not necessarily my favorite songs. Okay, so now we have an error that we have to solve. But I thought that was kind of an interesting little issue there, just because Blackbird, Freebird, anyhow, what is my error here? It says this syntax is not correct. Okay. So it's looking at line 24, line 12, and line 19. It says index error, list index out of range. Kind of an interesting error. So that's telling me that the way I'm addressing I here is incorrect. Yeah. So this is just an indicator. We say, so it'll print number 1, song list. What should this pull in position 0? But it's saying that it's out of range. And it's getting stuck right here. So this is where we would look at the data structure of what we've tried to build. But this is doing a print of the songs, but this part worked, right? The entering the songs worked. Yeah, that wasn't a problem. It's the printing that broke it. All right, so then, all right, so does this change the value of I as I'm running it? No, it doesn't, does it? All right. If the while loop's not really a good option, is there a better way to do this? Yeah, that's where we get to that using a for loop. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to remove a lot of this. Okay, and I'm going to do it with this approach. I'm going to use the triple double quotes to make this all a comment. There you go. So that's not executing code. What would be a better way to print out all the songs? How about a for loop? Okay, how about we say for song in song list. And then what are we going to output? We want to output the song and the artist, right? Okay, so could we borrow this print statement? I suppose we could borrow it, but we might, this is using the letter I in here. You guys noticing that? And I don't have a letter I. Okay, so we could, for example, say I equals 1. Okay, would this work? Is this simple enough to make it work? Here's what we'll do. Let's try this code. So I'm just going to hit the run button now. And once again, it's only going to prompt us for 2 songs. I'll use the same 2 songs. We'll do Blackbird, Beatles, and then Freebird. And I'm just going to say Skinnerd. Now, this is really kind of the point of this demonstration really was, if you're using a while loop, you got to really be careful about how you're engineering it and putting it together. And a while loop is really not built. Not that we couldn't tweak this code and make it do the same thing. But notice how a for loop just automatically traverses the data structure automatically. That's a huge advantage, right? And therefore, and I say this because we're data students, that's probably the preferred approach for traversing data structures, is to use a for loop. A while loop is particularly useful for doing user interactions, though, right? Where a user gets a choice and can control the loop manually with their actions. All right, we have one more to do. All right, so let's see if we can kind of get through this one really quick too. It says, write a program that reads movie data from a CSV file filters out only the Monty Python movie and creates a new CSV file. Use a try except statement to handle the exception such as a missing file. We have 9 minutes left before the next class starts. So I'm like, talk about hurry up mode. I feel like I'm in like, like 20 seconds left to go in the football game and we got like 80 yards to go. So I'm going to try to make it happen, folks. Plus I have camera problems on top of it. All right. Let's start by looking at the CSV file. So that file was attached to the assignment, and I think I have it here. All right, so this is what the CSV file looks like. Remember, CSV stands for comma separated values, very common transmission mechanism. So it looks like the first line is like the title, right? So there's a title and a year, and then all the data is got that going on. So we have a title and a year. So we have a bunch of Monty Pythons, apparently the Star Wars movies here, and some other, a bunch of Star Wars stuff and a bunch of Monty Python stuff. You blame Christopher for the listing of these movies. All right. So that's the file that we're dealing with. And now when you're dealing with a code file like this, you do want to make sure it's saved in the same spot where your code file is. Otherwise, you have to get into this other aspect of loading up the operating system library and directing it to the correct path statement. And that's kind of a lot of work right now. I would normally show you how to do that. It's not really that difficult, but it is time consuming. All right, so I'm going to save that here. So we're saving the CSV files now in the same folder as our code file. Back over in our coding engine, and we're using Visual Studio Code right now to do this. I am going to create a new file. We're going to call the new file movies.py. All right. And last time I did this, I did put comments up at the top. Right. And this particular thing that we're about to do, and this is a goofy example, but reading in CSV files in Python and processing the data inside of them is a very, very common data analyst task. Very, very common. So thus important. Since we're going to import that file, we need the tools from Python that allow us to do it. So from the CSV, of course I type it wrong, CSV library, we are going to import two tools, the reader and the writer, right? And normally when we're importing a library, we don't want to do this, but that would be an option too. It's better if you know what tools you're using and then call them by name and pull them into the program. So we're going to use the reading tool and the writing tool called reader and writer. We're going to put the main part of what we're doing in a try except statement, if you guys remember those at all. And you know what, I'll do the except part of it later. Let's do the try. The try is basically whenever you're working with code that has the possibility of failing, most likely either from user import or a file just simply not being there, you want to use this because otherwise your program crashes. So I'm going to create an in-file variable that's going to open the file. And I do have it typed in here, so you just drop the file name right in there. It happens to be in the same folder, so path statements are not necessary. Then I'm going to create another variable here that's going to take the results of the reader part of the CSV library. So that takes that file and it processes it into a format and then saves that format here. Then we're going to create an out file, and we're going to use the writer to write it back to another file. So in other words, we're going to open a new file. Notice how this is open in write mode with a W, so it creates it if it's not there. And then this will write the output file, and it's going to have a line terminator this is a new line character. So every time it creates a new line, it's going to drop in, that escape sequence that we already know how to do. And I know I'm trying to explain this as fast as possible. We got 4 minutes left. Feel like I'm under the gun here. We will get no break either. All right. And then from there, we're going to reopen the file. So in other words, the file was written, right? Now it's ready to receive information. So now we're reopening it. Wait, that's the same line I just pasted in, right? Yeah, it is. Okay, never mind. There's a failed copy paste. How gloriously cool is that? All right, so now we're gonna take that file and we're gonna add the list of column headers to the CSV file. So we're gonna write a row. Notice the command, right? So we'll write one row in. And then since we're writing it into the new file, this is kind of weird, we're going to skip it in the reader file. So we're going to put in the command next. We're not going to go to the first line. So this is just to show you that you can kind of manipulate the data inside of a file as you're writing it. Now we're going to start to do a little bit of filtering, but we're first going to write some stuff, right? So we're going to, put some stuff on the screen. And then we're going to do this for loop. So I'm going to just show you really quick the for loop. Yes, this is way hurried up. There's the for loop. So for every row in the CSV reader, and notice we issued the next command here. So we're skipping the first row. We're going to drop in each individual row. We are going to look to see if Python is in the title. And if it is, we'll add the information. And notice we'll put something in position 0 and something in position 1, name of the movie and the year, right? Then we write the row and then we print it up on the screen as well. So we're writing to the file and outputting to the screen at the same time. And then if all that works, it'll process all the data in the file automatically. And then at that point, we close both files, in file and out file, both closed. And then we'll put in some exception handlers here. So the exception handlers would be an IO error. So that's a possibility. Basically, you would just have like a message, something to the effect of this, file not found, probably. And then we can also have what we call a runtime error. So you can handle multiple types of errors. And we'll just call whatever that generates error. It's easier to deal with that as a variable. And then we'll just output that error message like so. That's highlighting yellow, but I don't think that's problematic. In fact, I think it's because we're converting it to a string. Oh, I see. Yeah, you got to spell correctly. All right, so there's all of the code. I have just enough time to run this before the next class starts. All right, and there's your output, folks. So I went through that file, picked out the Monty Python movies, and put them up on the screen. Granted, it showed them as a list, but that's what's in that file is technically a list. All right, folks, this video ends here. We got them all done.